Hi gals and guys, Vetemor here, bringing you a very special video. In this video, Kieran comes on for an epic conversation. We go into tokenomics, intellectual property, the council, the land sale, and even alpha on survival mode. I mean, honestly, there is alpha and never before heard information all over this video, and I'm very, very excited to be bringing this to the community. So let's get straight into it. Hey, hello Kieran, how's it going, bro?
Vetemor, how are you, mate? Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, man. It's a pleasure to have you. So the reason I've brought you on here is because when it comes to Illuvium, obviously, we've all been absolutely blown away by this project. I believe personally that you and the team, you've all done an absolutely amazing job. It's clear to see. Best tokenomics around, and the leaks that just keep on coming, like, they're just so damn flawless, so beautiful. And because you guys have been so transparent along the way, especially compared to like mainstream gaming development, the bar that you've set is actually extremely high. So what's ended up sort of happening is, because it's such a high bar, anything that seems even vaguely vague begins to look like a red flag in contrast to the ridiculous level of like standards you've set. And I think you've been incredibly inclusive to like the community. You've included the community in a lot. But what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to just ask you to like shed some light on a few of the places that maybe do still come across as unknowns. So to kick things off, how does the vault work? What's the security like around the vault? Who controls the vault? That kind of thing.
Okay, so that's tapping into the tokenomics a little bit, but happy to go through it. So essentially, how the vault works, and I guess our point of difference between most vaults out there and most DAOs out there is, the first thing is that whatever monies that are generated in game, external to the game, anything that has to do with the ILV governance token, those revenues go inside our ILV vault. Now, the ILV vault has a mechanism, a smart contract backed behind it, where periodically it will take those revenues, and I say periodically because we don't want people to be able to front run it, and if you know the exact dates where things are going to be distributed, you can simply start staking, then unstake, and continue on doing that each week. And so essentially it will compile all of that ETH that has been generated throughout that week. Hopefully we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that goes in if we do our job properly. And it then, the mechanism then looks to the market. It chooses the best rate that it can get, whether it's through the sushi pool, which it probably will be, or 1inch, or any of the other decentralized exchanges. Probably not a centralized exchange to start off with. Some technical things that we would need to do to configure that, but again, not ruling it out. Purchases that ILV off the market, and then obviously if we are purchasing, even $1 million off the market, you're going to see a slight increase. If we're purchasing, tens of millions of dollars off the market, you're going to see quite a large increase. It's like having multiple luggies every single week just coming in there and propping up our tokens. So that's the idea. And essentially then what happens is that ILV gets distributed proportionately back to the people that are staked in the protocol. If you lock up longer, you're going to get more, and the more you lock up, the more you're going to get. So very, very simple. It's a mechanism that's available to everyone. We understand that we're sort of two-pronged attack we have for marketing the protocol to people. We understand there's investors, and we understand that there's players. We really do want to educate every player to become an investor as well. The way that we've set up the tokenomics, there really is no downside, apart from if you're a super, super small player and you're only looking to stake a tiny amount. then you're going to run into some issues with gas fees maybe potentially being higher than the rewards that you're going to earn. But even still, things like V2 staking is going to reduce gas a ton, and then eventually we will move the entire staking and yield farming over into layer 2. So that's basically how the vault works. Who controls that vault? It's made up of 5 individuals, and so this is essentially what we call the PDAO, which stands for the Protocols DAO, and or probably should be called the P Vault. But essentially, what that is, or Treasury, whatever word you want to call it. But essentially, where all of the ILV and all of the money that we've raised through our pre-seed, seed, and balancer sale has all gone into this treasury. It's inside a Gnosis multi-sig, which is one of the most secure ways that you can hold your treasury tokens and any other tokens that you might have, and NFTs and stuff like that. So it's fully secure. How it's actually secured in terms of the human intervention is we require on ours 3 signatures in order to put through a transaction. So we've got 5 people that exist on the DAO, which if you go and ask someone like Danny, that presents quite a bit of an issue, because every single time he wants to make a payment, it's got to be signed off by 3 external people. I myself am on it. Danny is on it. And Justin from Synthetics is on it. Roger is on it. And also Marcel. And so it's not, we didn't necessarily choose. I mean, Marcel, I've known for something like 10, 15 years now. So there obviously is a trust factor there. Justin, he's been a founder of Synthetics Protocol. He's been inside of crypto for 5, 6 years now. Super, super trustworthy person. I was literally just with him on the weekend, and yeah. So, but not just we didn't just choose. And again, Roger, one of our first hires, super, super trustworthy person. And definitely aligned with the protocol of what we're trying to achieve here, and I don't think we have any risk there. But it's not just about like forming that DAO and those people who hold the funds and essentially can deploy those funds. We need to be super careful that they are geographically located around the world, so it is deemed a DAO. If all of a sudden you have 5 people that are signatories on that DAO, and all 5 of them are in Australia, then we're probably going to have some issues with the ATO stepping in saying, look, this is a business, clearly not a DAO. We want to be a decentralized autonomous organization, and part of that is geographically being located in places all around the world, in all different jurisdictions, where it becomes very, very hard to regulate, because you are touching so many different regulations and regulatory bodies that don't necessarily work with each other. It's a very disjointed network. And so DAOs in themselves are kind of flying under the radar. We've seen a whole bunch of different countries out there come out with their own sort of guidelines of what they think a DAO is. But I think by far and large, the message is we don't know what they are. We're working towards them being regulated somehow, but probably not for the next 3 to 5 years.
That's fair enough. And when it comes to like in the future, when treasury funds are being used potentially more often, is there any plans as to like the transparency of how those funds are used, like publicly speaking?
Yeah, definitely. So it's kind of been something. So my thing is, when people talk about transparency, right? My thesis is the more transparent you are, the more people are willing to put money into your protocol, right? And I think, if you take that and you apply, if you take that methodology and you apply it across the entire DAO, unless there are situations where it's going to potentially hinder our progress in terms of, we don't want to put up a whole bunch of red tape around how we're able to spend money, because there might be some low-hanging fruit that simply needs a decision there and now to say, we can't, we've just got to run with this. It's too big a thing. It's going to have too much of a positive on the token price or the community sentiment or any number of these things, and we kind of just got to do it. Now, that's one side of it where we really we just don't. It's not a matter of we don't want to show people what we're spending money on. In fact, it's literally it's sitting on the Ethereum blockchain. You can, and a lot of people do, track our multi-sig wallet, and you can see where the money is going to a pretty high level. If obviously if things go to exchanges and then they come back out, it gets a little bit harder to track. But I see no reason other than potentially us losing a little bit of our agility for us to be able to show that. So my thoughts on that specific point would be that eventually we get to a stage where probably Danny, being the CFO, he releases a report and says X amount was spent on wages, X amount was spent on marketing, X amount was spent on little things like exchange listings and KOLs and stuff like that. So I don't know if we can be as transparent as, hey, we are about to deploy X partnership and it's going to cost us Y amount of tokens, and we need to initiate this now, and yet it's going to take 4 or 5 days for it to be even approved by the council. I don't know if we can get to that. I think eventually maybe we can with a much more agile voting mechanism and approval process through the council. But right now, I know that would hinder our progress in being able to quickly mobilize and make things happen, which at the end of the day, that's what the token holders should really be caring about. Are they doing things to increase the price of the token and not decrease them?
Yeah, I don't really think that there is a need to be releasing everything on the spot or necessarily even beforehand, unless it's just easy to do and isn't obtrusive to the progress of exactly what we actually want to develop here. Mm-hmm. But after the fact, everything will be at some point made public, essentially, to a strong degree. Yeah, partnerships will all. Yeah.
I would like us to get to that point. And again, and another thing that another caveat to that is we only have so much time, right? And so right now, Danny is probably doing 3 people's jobs in reality, and the guy works 16 hours a day. He's constantly doing everything to do with finance, and we probably should resource up his section of the business. But again, it's not a situation where it's we don't want to show you what we're spending money on. It's quite the contrary. We do want to show you, because most of the time they're very positive outcomes that come from those outputs of spend. And so, I think getting to that stage where there's quarterly reporting, monthly reporting, even or even an automated system that says this was used for this, and this is as long as it's not under an NDA, the payment that we're making, then I see no issue with it whatsoever.
100%. And just to move on a bit, what is the delineation between the Illuvium DAO and the actual developing studio that's actually creating the intellectual property, creating the game, how are those two like separated? Who controls what? How is that differentiated? Who actually owns the intellectual property? Is it the DAO? Is it the, yeah?
So it's an interesting one. In order to, we're traversing a fine line between being deemed as a financial product in Australia, which, because there's 3 co-founders from here, regardless of the fact that we're just a DAO, there can be an argument to say that, you know, it was founded in Australia, which is kind of the first thing that isn't amazing. But yeah, so essentially we're traversing this line and we want to remain decentralized. And so what that means is we can't set up a company that controls all of this IP, right? All of the IP of Illuvium, right? Now, is it deemed, and would it be, you know, can you fight this in a court case if someone was to come out and start creating merchandise and whatever, that Illuvium Labs, which has got 2 co-founders that are just figureheads of Illuvium Labs, we don't actually have any IP rights or anything, or any decision making over what is now currently the DAO. I don't know. You know, we are holding right now. That allows us to continue being a decentralized organization in Australia. And that is the reason why we don't say that we own all of the IP. Where we protect ourselves in terms of the art, right? If someone created a character and they were going to say, you know, that's my IP, is we sign over the IP. Or when I say we, our artists, our developers, marketing, everyone inside the DAO signs it off to essentially no one, right? And says, I don't have claim to this IP, either does Illuvium Labs, but no one does, right? So enforceable in the court of law, they have no argument, no leg to stand on. And so therefore, it's kind of like the IP is just floating at the moment, right? And that allows us to stay.
But also, if someone tries to copy us, can they just freely copy us because nobody owns it?
Theoretically, yes. Now, in that situation, you would have to make, you know, what essentially the argument is going to be, okay, let's go back through history and who has the original files, and we could easily go back and prove that we own the IP, right? That whether or not that's the DAO or that's Illuvium Labs, which is controlled by Aaron and myself, either way, we have a very, very good argument that, you know, all the documentation, all of the imagery that we would need I believe in any, you know, court of law, wherever it may be, where it comes up, we would be able to fight that it is our IP. But it's an interesting one, right? Because this is, again, something that has never been done before, right? At this scale. And it begs the question, what happens if we do get to the actual scale that we're talking about, where we have, you know, hundreds of millions of players, but not only that, hundreds of millions of people that are walking around shopping centers and stuff like that, trying to buy our merch, and we need to be able to make sure that it's, you know, protected. And so it's the trickiest question you're going to ask me today, because I don't really have an answer yet, but I can tell you that we're at the forefront of it. The lawyers that we're working with, the legal team that we've got, are speaking with both the regulatory bodies in Australia and B in the US, and right now we are very comfortable with where the IP sits, but again, it's a moving target.
Okay, thank you. So in your view, like in this upcoming epoch, what are the main challenges that we'll be facing as a DAO, and what do you think would be the primary focus of the council in the coming 3 months?
So there's a lot to deliberate on in the next epoch. There's, Illuvitas is coming. We still need to work out the pricing on that. The land sale, still the pricing hasn't been finalized, so that's going to be in the next epoch. There is a whole bunch of stuff that we need to do in order to increase transparency and just the processes, the general processes of the council. I think in the beginning, or at least in the first couple of epochs, there was a large understanding from the community that the core contributors, because this DAO had just been formed, it was almost like, hey, we're going to give you a pass, but you guys have got to do what you got to do. You got to set up the systems, the processes in order to make this a working DAO that has as much transparency as possible. And so I that's part of the reason that I would like to make it onto the council, is I want to make sure that there is a focus in the council that aligns with where the core contributors need the council to be as well. So it's not just about how do we make the council better so the community is happier, because at the end of the day, the community is just going to be happy when they have the best product that we can deliver and the highest token price. That literally should be the only two things that the community gives a shit. If I'm to a certain extent, if I'm the most evil person alive and I start doing super, super evil shit, then maybe you step in and go, hey, is he the right guy? But my point is, if we continue to deliver on the promises, and yes, there have been delays and stuff like, things out of our control, things in our control, but I think everyone can agree that we've been a fairly transparent team. We've certainly tried to be that from, the top down all the way through. And yeah, I just want to make sure that those processes are aligned on both sides, because I think that, and to go into that council, like the comments that are made about someone like Santiago, right? Like that's why I say there's two sides of the coin here, right? There's the people that see the council's work that are more so in like OG VC land, that are advisors to other projects, they're investors to other projects, they're, massive, massive whales that are sitting in our protocol, and they know how much a guy like Santiago does for the project. And from my side, I see both sides of the coin, right? And Santiago's on one side, like, dude, I talk to you every fucking day. Any single thing that comes up that's a contentious issue that needs advice on, that we might need to discuss to optimize, Santiago has been in it. Literally every single thing that you see, from our smart contracts to our mini game decision, do we even do that? Literally everything Santiago has been invested in, has advised on, to the point where probably 10 times more communicative with me than someone like Kane, right? And if Kane ran for council, everyone would start flying their flags and going, woo, he's back. But that guy's probably said 7 words in Discord since he's been here, and yet he's not going to get bashed. So I get it that he's not as active, and obviously he doesn't have as much time as your standard community member to be in there. But his influence and his advice over this protocol is imperative. And we're trying to make it so it's more, there's more transparency around those conversations. But I can just assure you that, he is doing everything he can. And my point there, it's a little bit long-winded, but my point there is there needs to be diversity on this council. And I think there almost always, but there can never be more. I think there needs to be a minority core contributor on there, but never a majority, because then you lose the decentralized nature of it. But I think it would be amiss if we had 5 community members on there or 5 moderators on there. I think you need the diverse experience of having, and you take Santiago off the council the last 3 months, the last 3 epochs, or 4. I'm 3 in the past, 1 coming up, and I don't want to bet on this because he's just such a good guy and he always has time for us. But I know for a fact that just naturally, it's just human nature that we would get less attention from him because he's not on the council. And that's what scares me. And that's why I implore people to vote in someone like a Santiago. If you think it's not Santiago, it still needs to be someone that's an OG in the space, an investor, someone that's either, like a framework VC or an IOSG VC, someone like that who's got that experience and that different lens to look through to help us deliberate on new things in the council.
I'd actually like to invite Santiago on for a chat because what I feel is that the community has absolutely no insight. Like, they don't know his side of it, or like he's almost not human. He's just that name, like Santiago. Who even is Santiago?
I don't think he's human either, to be honest, because his response rate is disgusting. It's like you ping him on Telegram, and that's the other thing. He doesn't use Discord, and that could be, we've got now a council on Telegram, and he's more active than I am on that, like considerably more active than I am on that. But yeah, I mean, seriously, like that argument of like, what does he do? I totally accept that, the community, it's a black hole to them and they don't see what he does. But if you trust me, and if you don't trust me as one of the guys who's running this protocol, then we got bigger issues. But if you trust me, I can assure you, I'm not just sitting here with this one dude who I'm saying is Jesus and we protect him for God knows what reason. Like, he genuinely is a massive, massive help to this protocol. And I would say he's probably attributed to about $300 to $400 on the token price. So when you ask yourself, why is it at 1,300 and not 900, you can attribute that to Santiago. And I'm not joking.
No, I totally get that. That's why I would actually love to have him on, because I feel like, also, I only recently found out that Dick Kings, he's actually big in the Telegram as well, and he helps a lot with Telegram. Running that. And I've not really seen him in the Discord, and there's actually multiple like places to reach people. Some people just don't actually use Discord, right? It's 100%. Just not their platform.
100%. And this is what I'm getting at, right? Like, if people when my Trezor fucked up last time and I couldn't vote, I was about to vote for Dick Kings, and Dick Kings would have got on the council with my votes. And I said, like, fuck, I completely screwed this up. It was a super busy time. I could have fixed it, but I didn't in time, and I'm sorry. You would have been in. And people were like, who is this guy? Like, and it's like, not everything is on Telegram. Like, if it was, Discord, if it was, then we wouldn't have, tens of thousands of people that come from different communities. I guarantee you there is so many whales that Dick Kings manages inside that Telegram that the Discord people who are saying, like, who the fuck is this guy? If he didn't do that, again, the token price is not where it is. And this is what pisses me off, because it's like, okay, let's just make it 5 people in Discord who are community members, who aren't moderators, who aren't anything, who don't have really any expertise, and then let's just see how the council runs. Like, it's going to be a shit show. You need diversity. You need people who are like, if I ping Dick Kings right now and we put this on screen share, I guarantee, I don't even know what time it is, he will get back to me in like 2 minutes, right? And so Santiago, totally same thing, right? Dick Kings, same thing. open your mind up outside of the little box that is Discord, and just know that people wouldn't be voting for these people if they didn't have a reason to, right? Like, I really think, unless we've got an Axie raid that's going to happen where some whale breaks up his wallets into 10,000 different ones, and we get some complete random in here that no one can actually explain who the fuck he is or she is, then I'd be like, okay, we might have a nefarious actor here. Like, let's look at this. But the guy has been running our Telegram for literally 12 months now and has never said a single thing about it. He just goes about his business and grows that Telegram. And I honestly think he would be a great council member.
I wasn't actually going to even ask about this, but I have been thinking if somebody even does try to do that malicious actor thing, split the wallets, it's going to be so obvious, because obviously, like, blockchain is public, that we would just cancel out that member, or like we just wouldn't allow it. Not to mention the EDAO, obviously.
Yeah, so the EDAO would basically roll back the election, and how we would deal with, well, I mean, we would have to look at the attack vector, what they did, if it was a splitting of wallets. How do we look at blacklisting those wallets for the future? Maybe we change something up, but it doesn't go through. Essentially, we're not that is the exact reason for the EDAO. The election would be rolled back, and I think everyone would again agree on that we have this random council member that no one even knows.
Cool. Do we have any further insight on the capital raise that's going to be taking place to assist with the mobile launch?
Yes, so that has been something, again, a lot of that stuff is very, very confidential. And so it's been super hard for me to navigate through, like, being transparent and then having conversations with VCs where, they're top 5 VCs in the world. They're investors of like fucking Netflix and Disney and like very, very, very large organizations where they're happy to talk to you, but they don't want anyone else to know that they're talking with you. And so it's been a tough one, but also what's been in the back of my mind, and the reason why we haven't been super proactive on closing this out, because we have a lot of interest, obviously, is I'm trying to work out how do we make this fair to the public, but also how do we just get the money, right? Because the money is to be used for 2 things. First thing is to ensure that the integration with Immutable goes seamlessly, and everything that we require for launch can be built on top of their layer 2. If for whatever reason, and there's been nothing to suggest this, so I don't want to raise any red flags or anything like that, because I promise you there isn't any. But if for whatever reason, we are somewhat reliant on a third party, that there's execution risk there in the sense that we don't control that third party. And so I don't want us to be in a position where we've got, 3 Solidity devs and we need to do a very, very fast sprint to build our own sidechain or layer 2 or whatever, right? So part of it potentially will be to do something like that, or to just ensure that it's a seamless operation once we transition to Immutable. But the big one is play to earn. It's just, I had no idea that it was going to be as big as it is. When we first started, there was maybe 50,000 players in this space that were coming from like your traditional jobs in developing nations. Now there's millions and millions. And so we didn't think that we would have to facilitate, especially not on day one, the ability for people in these developing nations to access Illuvium, because we just didn't think that they would be there. We were targeting the North Americans, the Chinese, the Koreans, the ones who are esports mainstream gamers. But in business, in startup, like we are a startup, you have to be agile, you have to be able to pivot. And when play to earn and these guilds started forming, and we saw the total addressable market for play to earn players is probably going to surpass 100 million by the end of next year. That's something where you don't want to have a product which you can't actually allow people to play, right? You just can't have that barrier to entry. Axie has this very, very high ceiling in that you need to go and buy 3 Axies. We've got the ceiling of, if you don't have a desktop, you're fucked. You can't play. And so I would almost argue that not having, it's much easier to go and get a scholarship, even though I've got my own thoughts on that, and it is still very, very hard. It's probably not going to be as hard as finding the money or the sponsor or whatever to go and buy you a desktop at your local computer shop to go back and play Illuvium. You're probably just going to go play Axie, which is why it's imperative and absolutely critical that we build a mobile first team. So I'm thinking about 100 developers that are specifically working in parallel to the Illuvium developers. And we put out the mobile game ideally 6 months prior to when we were going to release it. That's what we want to do with the funds. So it's a huge raise, and obviously the use case is super important. But how do you facilitate such a sale, right? It's never really been done at this scale. Certainly not like our valuation. Here's where it gets tricky. Our valuation right now is something like 14 or 13, let's just call it 13 billion. To give you an idea, Axie raised their round at just under 3 billion. So if we were to go out into VC land, and I've been talking about giving them a 50% discount on market rate, we're talking 7 billion. So almost 3 times the valuation of Axie that literally has hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. I don't give a fuck how good our graphics are, and they're good. It makes it a very, very hard sell to a high-powered VC. They're almost sitting back going, this is one of the largest market caps that we've ever invested into, and you're pre-launch. And so to wrap up this whole thing, so what we're thinking, and it's still in process, and it's a pretty novel way of doing a raise, what we're actually going to do. But we are most probably going to utilize the contracts and the protocol that Kane is building at the moment, which is called AELIN, AELIN. And with that, we should be able to make it a completely public raise, in the sense that we'll set the parameters that there is a certain discount that you get depending on how long you lock up for. So if you put in, call it $10 million, then it's a 1 year lockup. If you put in $5 million, then it's a 2 year lockup. If you put in 1 million, then you've got a 3 year lockup, something like that. And again, don't quote me on those parameters. I'm just making them up. But this platform should facilitate that, which will allow us to, instead of saying to the large VCs that are interested in this round, where we would have to give them a 50% discount, we can say, you're going to get less of a discount, but you're going to get less of a lockup period. So that's kind of the trade-off there. But I think as well, putting everyone in the same pool, whether you've got a whole, thousands and thousands of little fish and you've got a few little sharks over there, everyone's going to get to eat. And I think what I think is going to happen is we're going to have so many people that have the conviction already of, I know Illuvium, like they've done the research, they know we're going to build out multiple titles. All of it is going to go back to the people that hold this ILV token. I think telling a group of 1 million people that we now have registered, hey, you can get a new allocation of ILV. We'll give you 30% discount on market, but you need to lock up for 3 years. I reckon we'll probably get, close to our target of 100 to 150 million of just retail investors that want to do that, not even the VCs. But then telling the VCs, hey, if you want to be part of this sale, it's fair launch. You go with the public, you get the exact same terms, and that's just the way it is. I think that would be one of the first times it's ever been done, and I think it would show the public that we are always thinking about them first. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're doing with the raise.
I love this project, man. This is the other thing that I'm seeing with other projects, is that the way that it's done, like, you're not selling loads of stuff before the games come out to just there's no advantage. There's just equal ground. And like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. A few hours ago, Miranda's actually held a Vox NFT sale, and they had like set prices, and their servers got totally screwed. I think it took like 4 or 5 hours because they were like totally reloading all the time. And the more like experiencing that, sort of seeing that, because a bunch of my friends were in it, I was like, well, our land sale is going to be over the course of 3 days, and we've got Dutch auction with starting prices that people won't want to immediately just spam the button and buy.
Mm-hmm.
But our sale is going to be smooth, I'm thinking. Like, how do you think that the land sale is going to go, smoothness wise?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fairly, the way we've said it, the duration should be long enough. It gives everyone a chance to, you're not sitting there where you're like, okay, I only have a 10-minute window to purchase, or even like 3-hour window. That, to some people, if you're, that might be 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. in the morning for you, right? We wanted to exclude all of that kind of FOMOing in. And so we went with 3 days. There's quite a large gap between each one that loads up, each batch that loads up. So, I mean, plus with the increase in prices, which I know you've been shilling that narrative all over Twitter as much as possible. And to be honest, you're completely right. At a minimum, you're right in the sense that it should be increased to at least match where the SILV / ILV should have been pegged to. Now that it's doubled, or it's come back a little bit, but now that it's doubled, it's just too much buying power with SILV. And again, I mean, it's kind of, it doesn't really matter, right? Like, here's the thing, it's, do you want a whole bunch of money up front? And I'm telling you, I've already made this clear to the community, and I know that this will get approved because it's for the little guys and not for the big guys. And that's, if we want this land sale to generate a ton of money up front, right, then we've got to increase these prices. And we've got to not allow everyone to utilize all of their SILV to just purchase it. Otherwise, we're going to end up with 95% SILV and 5% ILV. Now, I don't care, right? Because that means in day one, you've already used all your SILV, so you're going to use your ETH to go in game to cure your shards, to travel around, to buy your skins. Either way, you're going to use up your SILV, whether it's now or in 10 years, right? So at the end of the day, it has a finite amount. And once that stops, you got to start using ETH, right? So, but I fully get it, right? I would rather see the way that our tokenomics, everyone talks about, oh, they're superior, they're amazing, they're so well thought out. But we haven't actually, apart from the staking, which everyone has enjoyed, the fact that it's, always above a 400% APY, or most of the time it is. But we've never actually demonstrated the distributions. And when people see the market buy, what that does to the charts, and people start analyzing that and they go, oh my God, but what if that happens again next week and again? And it's like, not what if, it fucking is going to happen. And so people can start to build this narrative of what the tokenomics actually are, and they see that up, and then they see, oh shit, okay, I just had an ILV pop into my my interface and I did nothing. Like, what is going on here? And so I think that we need a mix. I would like to see 50% SILV and 50% ILV. I also think that we can generate somewhere to the tune of 300 million in this sale.
When you say ILV, do you mean ETH?
Sorry. ETH and SILV. Sorry, misspoke. Yeah, but definitely to be clear here, you cannot use ILV. You have to use SILV or ETH. But yeah, so you know, I would like to see a split of 50-50. And the reason is, you know, if we hit our targets and we generate, you know, above 150 mil, and even that's 50-50, you're talking 75 million buy on the market. That's going to be a big demonstration of our tokenomics. And then you're talking $75 million worth of ILV being distributed back to people who are staked in the protocol. That you're going to be seeing people tweet about it and go, you know, oh my God, this thing actually works. Haven't even started. The game hasn't even started yet. What the hell is going on? But the reason I say, the reason I say, you know, there's almost a caveat to that is I'm going to write an ICCP that changes the distributions for one-off revenue generation events. And I think it's required for a couple of reasons. The first one is we don't want people to be able to game the system. And if they know that there's going to be a land sale, there's going to be an Illuvium sale, there's going to be whatever the fuck other crap that I think of, or Aaron thinks of, that we want to put inside the ecosystem, there's going to be an opportunity for people to say, that just happened. That vault has a large amount of money. They're going to start distributing it. I'm going to buy ILV temporarily, stake it, then sell my ILV and just take the additional revenue distributions. My ICCP will be designed to essentially pad out the revenue from these large-scale events to make people stay staked the entire time, right? So you can't just wait for the revenue event of the land or Illuvium or whatever. You literally, and I'm talking like over a 12-month period. And then if you think about that, we're going to be selling the land over probably a 2 to 3 year period, as in 20,000 plots, 20,000 plots, 20,000 plots. So this ICCP would effectively remove the ability to get a large amount of money to then dump, and it will force people, if you want to get your portion of that revenue, someone like a Luggies is going to have to, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or he might actually exit the protocol, and that's not going to be good for anyone. But someone like a Luggies can go, well, fuck, I've just got, like, I saw his votes come in. I'm like, Jesus, the guy's holding a lot of ILV. He can get that revenue and go, well, you know what? I'm really, really up now. I'm going to sell it. I want to force him to stay in the protocol. Now, that might piss him off, but that should be a yay, amazing to everyone else. But then my challenge to Luggies, because I'm also a Luggies, is do we care, right? Because yes, the self-interest is there and the greed factor is there, and I want as much money as I can possibly get in the world, obviously. Everyone should. I'm only kidding, but sort of half. But if I am greedy, right, and I say, no, I want all of this revenue in one hit, yes, I'm going to get my large portion of revenue distributions, but so many people are going to leave the protocol on the basis of this catastrophic event that happens where a bunch of other people get huge distributions and they leave the protocol. And so it's a cascading event. I would much rather say, no, I accept it. I'll take my revenue over the next 10 years, whatever that's going to be. And obviously not 10 years. It'll be, less than that, more moderate than that. But effectively, I know I'm going to get more because the ILV that's being distributed to me is not going to be worth $50 because everyone left the protocol. It's probably going to be worth $5,000. So I'm actually up because I left my own self-interest at the door and I said, let's bring the entire community into this. And if everyone makes money, then everyone's going to spend a whole bunch more money. And then I'm going to be more wealthy at the end of the day, which is effectively the investor's mindset, what is needed.
And also, if somebody wanted to actually live off revenue distribution, it would actually be a lot more smooth and consistent, potentially even through bear markets, because you guys are just like keeping an amount and then slowly parceling it out in a way that it's just smooth and there's no like sharp dips and
Correct.
like huge rises. It will just be slowly increasing over time, like assuming, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And to go into that as well, right? Because I really do want to broach this subject where I think the one big risk, or at least it should be, if people aren't thinking about it, again, call me the fucking man of transparency, I don't care. But if you're not thinking about this and you're invested in ILV, you absolutely should be. But there is unlocking happening in late March, right? Now, I'm probably only talking to 5 to 10% of uneducated people out there in terms of, when I say uneducated, I purely mean on Illuvium and the tokenomics. But there's an event which is coming up, and a lot of people have spoken about it, and it is a big risk. It's a big risk to a lot of different protocols, right? And what we are planning on doing to de-risk this, and this is why I'm saying it's going to be very, very positive in my statement in Discord, is in this raise, if we can go out and raise enough money, the idea is there's a whole bunch of pre-seed and seed investors that we are going to go out to and offer them instant liquidity. So instead of them being locked up for another 15 or 16 months or whatever it is, we're going to say, hey, you're obviously very, very far up, right? You bought in at fucking $1, so screw you. And you're very, very up. I love you, pre and seed investors. But the fact is, you're up, right? And not just by a little bit, by a massive amount. And so we want to go to these pre-seed and seed investors and say, we will buy out your tokens now using the capital raise that we do. So let's call it 100, 150, whatever it works out to be, out of our 250 million raise. So we take 100 million. That's well enough for us to go out and build the mobile game that we need to. But then the other 150 goes and buys all of those small fish that put in 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand. We wipe them all out. And then we say to everyone, we've just wiped out 50% of the sell pressure that is coming in March. It now no longer exists. And not only that, we, the Treasury, purchase those tokens. So now we're sitting on an extra, call it, 75,000 tokens or whatever it is. And we can then either use them for additional yield farming rewards, marketing exercises, whatever the fuck we want, right? So two-pronged attack, we get more money into the Treasury and we remove any potential sell pressure. At that point, then FUD the project. What are you FUDding it with at that point? Literally, like bring it on is what I say.
Lelahel was telling me about this idea very, very recently. That is just genius. It's just genius.
Yeah, I don't know. There's some guy who I'm sure it's the dude that you're talking about, but there's someone who keeps DMing me that knows too much, like knows things that I haven't even told, like someone like Aaron, for instance. And again, not for any reason. I'm just like I'm openly telling you about all of this on an AMA that you're going to shout from the rooftops. So it's not about that. But I was just like, how do you know what I'm thinking when I haven't even told? So if it is that dude, either he's me and I've forgotten that I have an alias or something. I don't know, but yeah, he's got some ideas and he's pretty close to where I'm at in terms of what we're actually trying to achieve with this raise. But if we were able to solve both of those issues at the same time, the sell pressure plus, hey, we actually have another 100 million in the kitty, it's game on, right? It's gonna be gonna be very, very fun times. And if we can do all of this around the land sale plus the Illuvitar sale, and we start distributing shitloads of revenue out to people, like we're really starting to tick some boxes. And then obviously, you know, very quickly after that, we start having things like the open beta release, and you know, then it gets interesting.
Before we begin wrapping it up shortly, because obviously we're probably a bit over time, I've been wondering, what is survival mode? Because I think I know a lot about this game, but like, it's the one thing I like just haven't. I don't know. I actually don't know what it is. What actually is survival mode?
It's fun. It's funny. Sometimes shit happens, and I'm like, Aaron, what is survival mode? So full transparency once again. Before when I saw you send through that question saying if it was okay to ask about survival mode, I was like, fuck yeah. But I better brush up on exactly where they've gone with that, because sometimes they go down rabbit holes and it completely changes and whatever. But essentially, what it is think of it like TFT meets a tower defense, right? So you've got a level, and it's the actual lore component of it, like the story behind it is it's the training arena in Illuvium. And what happens is there's some issue every time you go in there. There's some issue, it malfunctions, and it just, instead of you being able to build your team, so you start off with a certain amount of points, those similarly to how the auto battler works. You have your deck, you have a certain amount of points that you can put out, and you're linearly getting additional points, whereas they're sort of the computer is getting exponentially harder each wave. And so you need to be smarter and smarter and smarter with your composition. And the idea is level 1, you got to beat it. And it might only send out, like, I don't know, 2 Atlases and a Thyla, right? And you got to beat that group. Then you got to beat wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, wave 5, until eventually you get up to like facing 10 different tier 5 alluvials that just wreck you, and there's nothing you can do about it. But hopefully you've gotten to a high enough level that you've earned yourself some SILV and some ILV, sorry. And yeah, that's pretty much what it is in a nutshell.
Well, that sounds very cool, actually. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate everything that you've shared with us, Kieran. You've been absolutely awesome. However, during this interview, I did actually notice something. Aaron is not here. So is there anything that you're excited about right now that you'd like to share with us?
I think Aaron leaks more stuff than me these days, but anything I want to share? I think the capital raise, the buyback, you've got quite a few leaks in here. That monkey, image that you've created is enough of a leak. I think that's going to scare people out if you post that up.
Am I allowed to use that as the thumbnail? Because that's what it's going to be.
Of course. You know me. I'm not precious. Not at all.
I was just going to say that I was going to make a meme out of it. Sees ILV apes in on that one.
That's actually that's good. That's the whole idea of the three apes. Everyone thinks that we have somewhat of a brain, but we're all just apes. That's us. But yeah, I'm finding it quite interesting that people are starting to recirculate my tweet that everyone absolutely lambasted me about. How dare I talk about SLP dropping, and now I'm getting tagged every single day, and people saying maybe that guy was crazy enough to be right, but let's hope not. A little bit, actually, I can give you a little bit of alpha on that. How about that?
Go on.
There was a guy who I was speaking to that I'm fairly certain is now part of the Axie team. He's a very smart guy. He definitely has the ability to modify and update and change and recreate the economy. And I'm gunning for him because, as I said, I think, there's a lot of people that have counted on and put their eggs into the Axie basket. And, I think it's good for everyone if all GameFi projects, especially something like as big as Axie, continues to grow. They work out their play to earn, because at the end of the day, as much shit as I talk, they are really, really changing lives. And, we're not going to be out there doing that for at least another, 2 or 3 months before ours opens. So the last thing that I want to see is people actually in developing nations who have jumped onto this. I love gaming myself. And so, yeah, I do wish them the best that they can fix it. But I just thought it was funny that people are now saying maybe he's not a lunatic and he actually knows what he's talking about. But yeah, so hopefully he fixes it fast is all I can say.
So the issues with the SLP price dropping in Axie Infinity, right?
Yeah, so it's essentially it's an economist that they need, and maybe they're getting multiple of them, but they need someone to really go in there. And there's some game design and some other stuff, but I mean, shit, they just raised $153 million, right? They're going to be doing 152 million, I think it is. We want to raise 153 for some reason, but yeah, so it's a lot of money. I think they're doing the right thing. I'm hearing the right stuff, so I'm less worried than I was even, when I made those posts. So, yeah, I think things will start to change. Hopefully, positive changes, and yeah, I wish them all the best.
Yeah, I think they're in a very good position to really get things right. It's just that they have to spend their money wisely. Because if they manage to actually spend their money and really make things happen, they've got a lot of money to make things happen. So it's just whether they can orchestrate it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm not sitting here saying that this is my 20th year running a AAA studio. 12 months ago, I was running a burger app, right? But if you have a shitload of money, which we do, and you know what you're doing, then you can allocate that money to experts in their field that are on their 20th year of running AAA studios, producers, modelers, texturers, concept artists, animators, developers, you fucking name it, you can hire them. And we are in a very, very exciting time. If you are an artist or you're a developer and you've been grinding in the same job, in the same sort of mainstream constraints of a studio, and you want to see how fun it is to be in crypto, I seriously implore you, go out, find a project that you think excites you, that you like the look of. Might not. I'm not just saying mine. There's plenty of other projects that are out there building. It's a whole nother world, and I guarantee you're going to have more fun. And given it's crypto, you're probably going to earn more money. So don't write us off just yet.
Awesome. Well, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I think we got everything. It's all good.
Well, thanks for coming on, man.
No worries. Thanks for having me, bro. Appreciate it.
Now, if you enjoyed this video, then smash the like button. And if you haven't already, then please be gentle when tapping that subscribe. If you have any questions or thoughts about anything that we spoke about in this video, then feel free to hit up the comment section. I can't wait to participate in some of the discussions that are going to take place there. I'm Vetemor, you're the future, and I'll see you there.